All right, today I'm going to do a demo on how to use the coiling technique. So the first thing you're going to need is some wedged clay. I have a canvas board, something to score with. I have one of the scored rib tools, 2 planks to help measure when we roll out, and a rolling pin, and a little bit of water to make slip. So you first need to figure out how big your coil pot's going to be. I have this little circle, and this is going to be the size of the base of my coil pot. All of my coils are going to then build off this coil pot. So I'm going to take some of this clay, it's already been wedged, and kind of shape it and lay it down on this canvas board. And we're gonna roll with it. Once I got it pretty flat, then I'm gonna take 2 of these wooden boards. And these wooden boards, what they do is they're going to help your clay not get too thin. They're gonna keep it thick enough. So you start rolling. I like to periodically flip my clay, make sure that both sides are getting rolled out. And I'm going to measure. All right, this seems big enough. So now I have my clay and it fits that little circle. Before I go and cut out this circle, I'm going to take the flat side of my rib tool, so not the spiky side, and I'm just going to pull across the top of my clay. And this is compressing my clay, making sure that it's nice and pressed together. And I'm going to do that again to the other side. Once we've done that, we're going to take our stencil and lay it down. This is when you would want to use a pin tool to cut this out, which I forgot. Let me grab it really fast. Excuse that pause. All right, so we're just going to trace around this circle and cut it out. All right, now we have this circle that's going to be our base for our coil pot. Let's set this aside for a second. And now we're going to roll a coil. So to roll a coil, you need a good piece of clay, probably about this size. And you don't want your coils to be too thin or too thick. They should not be thicker than your index finger, and you shouldn't be thinner than your index finger. You can get your hands a little bit wet. I just dipped my fingers in this water bowl to get a little bit of water on my hands. First, I like to start by rolling the clay in between my hands, kind of getting it into the shape I want. Then, using both hands, I'm going to roll and pull out with my hands. And as you do this, your coil should start to get a bit longer. And I always keep my hands doing the same thing. My thumbs connect, we can move together or move separately. If you feel like your coil's getting kind of flat on one side, you can give it a twist with one hand. You pull forward, that kind of gives it a twist, and then you just normal roll out again, and it'll get rid of that little flat side for you. I'm gonna give it another little twist. I'm gonna keep rolling out. This is gonna be the thing that takes the longest in making a coil pot, is prepping all of your coils. You want to try to keep your coil's thickness even. Throughout the whole thing. Okay, this is probably still a little bit thicker. I wouldn't go any thicker than this with a coil. But for time's sake, let's move forward. So now that I have my coil, I'm going to scratch my base right on the edge where this coil is going to lay, making a really rough surface to make sure that this clay sticks. Then I'm going to run my scratchy part of my rib tool across the top of this, roughing that up. Take a little bit of water from my water bowl, just rub that onto that scratched area. This will make a nice layer of slip. After I do that, I like to go through and scratch one more time just to make sure we didn't lose any of that rough texture. Then I'm going to take the scored section of my coil and I'm going to wrap it around the circular base. My coil's a little long, so I'm going to cut it and press that. It's still a bit long. Press this guy together. Now I have my first coil. Now, before I add another coil to the top of that, I want to scrape up this outer base, connecting the base to this first coil, helping the clay forget it was ever separate. So I first like to start by pulling up, getting that base, covering that coil, and then I actually like to do it a second time and pull the coil to the base. I think that helps to make sure it gets nice and sealed together, and it helps take off some of that excess coil. All right, once you've done that, take the flat side of your rib tool and smooth. Get rid of all that rough texture. And then you've added your first coil in your coil pot. You can take your pinky nail and run it on that inside to make sure that this coil is nice and smooth together. You're gonna wanna make sure that where it was connected gets nice and smoothed so it forgets it was ever one. And then you're gonna repeat the process. Scratch this top coil, add another coil on top, and so on and so forth. That's how you use the coil method.